And now we welcome Adriel Kasonta, who is a political risk consultant and lawyer, and he's going to help us understand a little bit more about this Asylum and Migration Pact, which will be voted on in Brussels this afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us in the studio.
It's a pleasure.
So perhaps just to begin with, can you perhaps tell us a little bit about the reforms to the migration issues that the EU is considering at the moment, which is obviously a very controversial issue?
It is indeed very controversial, and the fact speaks for itself, because for 8 years it was waiting for the European Union to finally reform the international reform of the Migration and Asylum Pact, which was on hold. Currently, the EU is debating, or the MPs in the European Union, in the European Parliament to be specific, are discussing the issues of unilateral laws implemented towards the asylum seekers who are reaching the very borders on the southern hemisphere of the European Union. This includes Spain, Greece and Italy, and it is all about the very balancing act between those who are willing to build the asylum seekers departments, where these asylum seekers documents will be verified and decided whether these people should come to European Union or not, and an act, on the other hand, between the countries like Poland, Germany and France, who are in the position of those countries who will share the quota of taking refugees in, or pay or share the burden of paying the requirement when it comes to the reunification and the money to sustain those asylum seekers' border rooms.
Right now, that was one of the major trip-ups in the last round when they were trying to pass this package. Of course, we saw that Poland was very much against, along with Hungary and others, as far as the migrant sharing and redistribution of migrants throughout the European Union. On that front, what developments are we expecting coming out of this new package if it passes?
Well, it's a tricky question, because it is not a straight cut. Previously, we knew that the far right was against it, but now we have a very funny rule where the enemies of my enemy is my enemy. For instance, when we talk about the Brothers of Italy, which is headed by the Mrs. Meloni, in opposition to their party, she's for this motion. The Democratic Party in Italy is against it. The same applies to France, where the Republicans and Socialist Party in France is against it because of Emmanuel Macron. As I've mentioned, it is not a clear cut, because it's not only a matter of the far-right movements, but also far-left movements and the Greens throughout Europe. So on the one hand, the far-right is saying that well, it should be more harsh legislation when it comes to bringing in migrants from the third countries. And on the left-hand side, I mean, from the left parties, they are saying that it is too harsh. So I think that the European Union will have to find a middle ground in order to accommodate the threats that are coming from both angles of the political spectrum.
Can you tell us a little bit about perhaps the screening procedure? Because I think this is going to be a key element of what will be voted in, or perhaps not, because I think that will. I think this is still in question. But we have some health and vulnerability checks, security checks, debriefing forms. Can you give us a little bit of insight into that?
Well, this is the case of the left-wing parties, who are saying that this is highly dehumanizing of the people who are arriving in order to seek the asylum in Europe, because, for instance, for the threat of the war, etc. But on the other hand, this is about the protecting European citizens. So it is, as I said, it is very nephrologic topic when it comes to finding a balancing act between not dehumanizing these people and at the same time making sure that European citizens are secure in their own home countries, in their own continent. So I think that it is a good proposition when it comes to have this unilateral system and the shared database of who is coming in and who is applying for asylum in Europe. But on the other hand, the intricacies and the details of this will be the burning issue when it comes to the voting itself, when it comes to finding this balancing act between bringing on board people who are against it or are for it. Like we know from the Politico that Emmanuel Macron was on the phone call with Prime Minister here in Poland, Donald Tusk, trying to persuade him that even if the MEPs from Poland who are sitting on the center of the right are not in favor of voting, let them at least refrain from voting. So as we can see, it's a very hot topic, and a lot of pushers and movers in the Brussels side and also in European capitals are trying to push this motion, because otherwise, if it fails, we will see another backlog coming for another, years to come.
Indeed, indeed. Yes, less than 24 hours before voting, there was still desperate negotiations taking place. So we'll see what happens. Thank you very much for your insight, Adriel Kasonta, political risk consultant and lawyer. Thank you for coming in.